That once was Dublin town, the hard halls and houses, the haunting children's ride. That once was Dublin city in the rare times. Ring, ring, rosy, as the light declines.
We hope you enjoy your tour. We would ask you to remain seated throughout the tour and leave the bus at your chosen stop only when the relevant commentary ends. Our next stop is for the Dublin City Gallery and the Dublin Writers' Museum. At the top of the street is the monument to Charles Stewart Parnell. Parnell campaigned for self-government and was known as the uncrowned King of Ireland. After the elections of 1885, he held the balance of power at Westminster, along with his 85 members of Parliament. His love affair with the married woman, Kitty O'Shea, and the subsequent divorce case led to a lack of support for Parnell. He died in Brighton in 1891 at the age of 45. On our right, as we turn onto Parnell Square, is the Rotunda Maternity Hospital. This hospital opened on the 8th of December 1757 and is believed to be the world's oldest surviving maternity hospital. It was known as Dr. Moss's Lying-In Hospital, and after the addition of a circular building to the side, it became known as the Rotunda. Next up is for the Dublin City Hugh Lane Gallery and the Dublin Writers' Museum. The Dublin City Gallery, also known as the Hugh Lane, contains a collection of modern works, impressionist paintings, and the Francis Bacon Studio. The gallery has free admission and is open every day except Monday. It is housed in the magnificent 18th century townhouse, which is to the left, slightly recessed from the street beside our stop. The red brick building beside the Presbyterian Church, ahead on the left, is the Dublin Writers' Museum. It contains information and memorabilia on all the great writers from Dublin's past, 3 of whom won the Nobel Prize for Literature, namely William Butler Yeats, George Bernard Shaw, and Samuel Beckett. The museum is open daily. Remembrance, on the right, was opened in 1966, on the 50th anniversary of the 1960 Rising. It commemorates all those who died fighting for Irish freedom. The bronze statue at the end of the garden is called the Children of the Air, characters from Irish folklore who had been changed into swans by their wicked stepmother and vanished to the lakes of Ireland for 900 years. We are now on OConnell Street. This is the main street of Dublin and one of the widest thoroughfares in Europe. Coming up on our left is the Gresham Hotel. This is one of the oldest and most famous hotels in Dublin. It got its name from Thomas Gresham, who started the hotel in the 19th century. Thomas Gresham was a fascinating person. He was a founding child, abandoned on the steps of the Royal Exchange in London. Because no one knew his name, he was called Thomas Gresham, after the man who founded the Royal Exchange. When he grew up, he came to Dublin and became the head butler in the house of a rich family in Parnell Square. It's a mystery where he got the money, but in 1817 he bought two large Georgian houses, numbers 21 and 22 Sackville Street, now O'Connell Street, and turned them into what is now the Gresham Hotel. On the right is the early 19th century General Post Office, designed by Francis Johnston. The statues at the top are of Hyperania and fidelity. The General Post Office was used as the headquarters of the 1916 Rising. It was from the street in front of the building that Patrick read the Proclamation of Independence declaring an Irish Republic. The Rising lasted less than a week. The rebel leaders surrendered to British forces and were taken to Kilmainham jail, which we will see later on the tour. We are now on Abbey Street, which is divided into three different parts: upper, middle and lower. Quite a number of streets in Dublin are split up in this fashion. In all places, the lower part of the street is the part nearest to the mouth of the River Liffey. Abbey Street gets its name from St. Mary's Abbey, an ancient abbey founded back in 1156 and regarded, historically, as being the most important Cistercian abbey in medieval Dublin. Just ahead is the Abbey Theatre, Ireland's national theatre. It was founded in 1904 by Lady Gregory, Edward Martin and William Butler Yeats. The building also houses the experimental Peacock Theatre. The original building, which housed the theatre, was destroyed by fire in 1951 during the run of The Plough Stars. Ironically, this play closes to the strains of Keep the Home Fires Burning, Ivor Novello's popular First World War song. The building which stands here today was designed by Michael Scott and was completed in 1966. It was developed in 1891 and designed by John Challoner Smith. This was built to link railway stations in North and South Dublin. A prominent feature in the city landscape since 1891, the Loop Line Bridge appears among the most famous literary works associated with Dublin. Ulysses by James Joyce. You will see what is considered by many to be the finest building in Dublin. This is called the Custom House and was designed by James Gavin in 1791. The building of the Custom House was critical in the development of modern Dublin and caused a major conflict between private and public interest, as it changed the whole focus of commercial life from south of the river. Most of the stonework was sculpted by Edward Smith. The statues over the north face entrance are personifications of the then-known four continents of the world: Africa, Asia, America, and Europe. Australia was not included, as it had just recently been discovered, and trade links had not yet been established. Dublin Central Bus Station. In Irish, this is Busaurs, or the home of the buses. It was built in 1953 and designed by Michael Scott, who is renowned as being one of the most influential Irish architects of the 20th century. It is from this award-winning building that buses to the provincial cities and towns in Ireland depart. You can board the express service to Dublin Airport also. This stop is for Busaurs, the central bus station. Please take your headphones and personal belongings with you. EPIC, the Irish Emigration Museum, is an interactive experience located in the CHQ building here on Custom House Quay. It will inspire and guide you on a journey to discover the stories of Irish immigration and explain how the Irish helped to shape and influence the world we live in. The tall ship on our right-hand side is the Jeanie Johnston. It is a replica of a ship of the same name that many Irish people sailed on to emigrate during the famine of the 1840s. The ship was remarkable in that, on its 16 crossings of the Atlantic, never lost a single person, while at this time most ships lost 10% of their passengers to disease and/or starvation. The story of the Jeanie Johnston brings to life the daunting experience of the millions of people who crossed the Atlantic, seeking survival and hope in the new world of North America. There are guided tours available here. Our next stop is for the Convention Centre. As the city expanded, the port of Dublin moved eastwards and left behind a very run-down area. A plan was devised to attract international financial companies to set up business here to help rejuvenate this area. The surrounding buildings are full of industry leaders. The traditional industries of finance and legal have been joined by digital and communication companies to help the Docklands become a vibrant working and living district in the city of Dublin. This has become one of the fastest growing areas of the city. During the day, employees work in the offices, and in the evenings, there are thriving bars and restaurants. Ahead and to our left, the large orange object is a diving bell, which was used in the construction of the Liffey walls. The diving bell was designed by the port engineer Fintan Blood Stoney, and it was delivered to the port in 1866, entered service in 1871, and was used in the building of the port's quay walls until 1958. Its lower section was hollow and bottomless, providing just enough room for 6 men to work at a time. Once Pierce Railway Station, on the left, was formerly known as Weston Road Railway Station. It was designed by William Dargan, and in 1832, Dargan built the world's first commuter railway line between here and Kingstown, which is now known as Dunleary.
We want to go down here next on Trinity Square. Now you're going to Trinity Square. Dublin. So the address on this house is number 1 Marion Square, guys. This is actually a childhood home of Oscar Wilde. This is the house where Oscar Wilde actually grew up in. And then when you go through the traffic lights and you get to your left hand side, you'll get to see the statue of Oscar Wilde. And this statue, by the way, folks, this is actually the only coloured statue here in Dublin City. Thousands of people, guys, come here every year just to get photographs of the statue of Oscar Wilde. The National Gallery, guys, when you go to the lights, be over on your right hand side beyond the black. The word national on it, it's free. From national museums, national libraries, national galleries, all the buildings in this city, guys, they're all free to go to. But there's Oscar Wilde now, guys, on your left hand side, leaning back on that big boulder, saying that you're doing. All these people in there get photographs of Oscar Wilde. Like, what the hell? It's nice in here on Sunday morning. Does anybody want to run in there and get a photograph of Oscar Wilde? Honestly.
On our left is the Marion Hotel. This is one of Dublin's 5-star hotels and is said to be the birthplace of Arthur Wellesley, who was to become the first Duke of Wellington, famous for his defeat of Napoleon at Waterloo. Catholics were allowed to join the British Army only in the late 1700s. At that time, Ireland constituted a third of the population of the United Kingdom. As we drive onto Patricks Street, you will see some of our well-known Dublin pubs, including the Henny and Nesbitt's on the left, and Toners, which you will see on the right. Toners is the only public house in Dublin to be visited by William Butler Yeats. It still retains its old storage drawers for teas and groceries, and the pump handles of the old beer machines. We will turn onto Leeson Street, named after Joseph Leeson, who was a wealthy brewer and a member of Parliament in the 18th century. In the Georgian period, stables and outhouses were located to the rear of the houses. Access was through the arches that you will see dotted here and there through the terraces. Along the pavements in front of the houses, you will occasionally see circular manhole covers which were used to deliver coal to the shed below. The stable boy looked after the horses and carriage. Apart from the housekeeper, a local maintenance employee was described as the maid of all work. She usually started at about 5 a.m. and often didn't finish her day's work until 11 p.m. The city's pedestrian lines. Parnell Square Townhouse, just off Grafton Street, is a refurbished 18th century townhouse which has an array of designer shops, antiques and crafts. The best known department stores in the city include Brown Thomas on Grafton Street and Arnott's on Henry Street. Irish goods can be found on Nassau Street in traditional stores such as House of Ireland, and many other shops where you will find an abundance of woolens, linens, crystal, pottery and ceramics. The aim of the Kilkenny shop on Nassau Street is to showcase the best and most creative developments in Irish design. We are making our way onto St. Stephen's Green. This is the largest of the 5 Georgian squares in Dublin and measures close to 1/4 of a mile on each side. The statue on the left at the entrance to the park is of Theobald Wolfe Tone, a leader of the 70s.
Live guided tour, so anybody that want to go to this museum, when you're getting off this bus, just give me a shout and I'll give you tickets, guys. But it's excellent to go to, it really is. Francis, stop number 12.
As we turn onto Dawson Street, look out on your left at the smallest pub in Dublin, the Dawson Lounge. Dawson Street is named after property developer Joshua Dawson. In 1710, he built a townhouse for himself, which you can see on the right. This is called the Mansion House, and it was bought for £3,500 by Dublin Corporation in 1715 as the official residence for Dublin's Lord Mayor. Today, Dawson Street has a good selection of restaurants and cafes, along with several bookshops. Duke Street connects Dawson Street to Grafton Street, and has 3 very fine Dublin pubs, including Davy Byrne's, which is mentioned in James Joyce's Ulysses. Directly ahead of us is Leinster House, home to the Irish Parliament. This building was designed by Richard Castles in 1745 and inspired the building of the White House in Washington. The top 2 floors of this building were used as the blueprint for the White House by its Irish architect, James Hogan. As we turn into Kildare Street, the entrance to the National Library is on the right. Further down the street, also on our right, is the Royal College of Physicians, which dates to the mid-19th century and is responsible for the training of doctors. The red brick building, coming up on the right, has some interesting stonework around the windowsills at street level. As we turn onto South Lancaster Street, to your left you can see Nassau Street. This street is home to many of Dublin's fine design and craft shops, such as Kilkenny Shop. There is also a side entrance into Trinity College here. This stop is for Nassau Street and Trinity College. We are now on Lincoln Place, and over to the right is the Millennium Wing of the National Gallery. George Bernard Shaw, the writer, always said that he owed his education to this gallery and left them the royalties to 1/3 of all his published works in his will. This bequest included the royalties to Pygmalion, which was later made into the film My Fair Lady. We are now on Westland Road. Number 21, coming up on the left, was the birthplace of Oscar Wilde. His family moved from here to number 1 Merrion Square when Oscar was 1 year old. On our right is St Andrew's Church, which was built in 1832, shortly after Catholic emancipation was granted in 1829. This stop is for Pearse Street Railway Station and Westland Road. You can also get the express bus service to Dublin Airport from this stop. We are now on Pearse Street. Pearse Street was formerly known as Great Brunswick Street, and in the early 18th century was full of orchards and gardens. The street was renamed in honour of Patrick Pearse, one of the leaders of the 1916 Rising, and his brother William. Both brothers were executed after the Rising failed. Their former home, which is over to the right, was restored in recent times, and you can see the sign over the front for James Pearson's Sons, monumental sculptors. Between the windows on the second floor is a stone carving of the brothers. This stop is for Pearse Street.
Alright folks, now our next stop, by the way, that's going to be for Trinity College, the Broken Kells, and Grafton Street, okay? So it's a bit of a multi-stop, okay? So that's where our next stop is going to be, for Trinity College. Trinity College, guys, it is the oldest college in Ireland, by the way. It was founded back in 1592 by Queen Elizabeth I. And Queen Elizabeth I, by the way, guys, she purposely wanted a college to be built here in this country. And our own loyal subjects that would never have to travel over there to Europe and become infected by what she would call Dublin. Now, the Book of Kells, guys, it is the most treasured possession. They are copies of the Gospels, the 9th century manuscripts. They depict the 4 Gospels of Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. Now, these books, guys, they're actually Christ's manuscripts. So there will only ever be 2 books on display at any one time in this library in the college, but every year over 500,000 people will go into this library in the college just to see the Book of Kells. So guys, this would be a very, very popular attraction, okay? Now, of course, saying that, guys, the Book of Kells, I mean, if it's not your kind of stuff, I would just jump off the bus and go in and we'll walk around the grounds of the college. It's beautiful, it really is nice. It's actually hard to believe, by the way, but up until 1904, women were actually forbidden from attending this college. There was to be a distraction from male students. It would affect their studying prowess. They were not allowed to attend this college, but yet today, over 60% of the students that graduate from this college are women.
The Temple Bar area of the city is on our right and stretches down to the River Liffey. The area gets its name from Sir William Temple, who owned the land here in the 17th century. A bar is an old word for a walkway along a river. The area covers approximately 28 acres and has been described as Dublin's cultural quarter. Temple Bar was for many years a derelict and run-down area of the city, but in 1988, Dublin's millennium year, attention was focused on the older parts of the city, which increased their need for property developers. Thanks to an urban renewal program which has been completely rejuvenated. It is now a living community with its residents, artists, galleries, theatres, and an abundance of nightlife. This stop is for Dame Street and Temple Bar. Our next stop is for City Hall, Dublin Castle, and the Chester Beatty Library. Looking to the left, we will pass one of the entrances into Dublin Castle. This was originally a Norman castle, which was completed by 1220. The castle was later redesigned by Sir William Robinson in the Georgian style. Located in the grounds of the castle is the Chester Beatty Library, with its collection of Oriental art, and the castle gardens, both of which are open to the public and have free admission. The castle is open to the public but occasionally closes for state receptions or meetings. Our next stop is for Christchurch Cathedral and Liffey. Just ahead on the right is Christchurch Cathedral, officially the Cathedral of the Holy Trinity. It is an Anglican Church of Ireland cathedral founded in 1038 by the Norse king, Patricks Cathedral. The Anglo Lords replaced the old wooden structure with the impressive stone cathedral in 1172 for the Bishop of Dublin, Lawrence O'Toole. Our next stop is for St. Patricks Cathedral. St. Patricks Cathedral is ahead on the left. It's located outside the old walled city and is the national cathedral for the Anglican Church of Ireland. Around the year 450, St. Patrick is reputed to have baptized converts to the Christian faith at a holy well which was located in the park beside the cathedral. St. Patrick's Cathedral was built by Archbishop John Comer and dedicated on St. Patrick's Day in 1191. One of the most famous names associated with St. Patrick's Cathedral is Jonathan Swift, the Dean of the Cathedral from 1713 until 1745, when he died after a long illness. He is buried inside the cathedral. Onto Kevin Street, look to your right and you will see the Deanery of St. Patrick's Cathedral. The interior was rebuilt after a fire in 1781. Francis Street, to the right, is now a centre for Dublin's antique trade. The street dates from the 14th century and gets its name from the Abbey of St. Francis. Our next stop is for the Trinity Whiskey Distillery. The Trinity Whiskey Distillery was the first distillery in Dublin in over 155 years, when it opened in 2015, and has revived the craft of distilling back in the very heart of Dublin city centre. In 2018, the company welcomed their first batch of whiskey from their new distillery, and the first drop of whiskey made in Dublin since 1976.
Right folks, here we go. This is Felix Whiskey Distillery. There's the distillery over there on your left hand side. It is literally 12 o'clock. Who wants to go drinking whiskey at 12 o'clock?
Our next stop is for the Guinness Storehouse. Please remain seated until the bus arrives at the stop. The main entrance to the Guinness Brewery is coming up on the left, with the goddess Ceres on the keystone of the arch. Ceres is the Roman goddess of agriculture, and she has a garland of barley around her head and neck, barley being the main ingredient in Guinness. The barley is malted, flaked and roasted, and they add hops, yeast and water. The brewery was established in 1759 by Arthur Guinness, who inherited his brewing skills from his father and £100 from his godfather, the Anglican Archbishop of Cashel. This money enabled Arthur to negotiate a lease on an old disused brewery which stood on the site. Arthur signed his lease for 9,000 years and agreed to pay an annual rent of £45. He brewed ale here initially and competed for business with dozens of brewers all.
Right, folks, this is Guinness. Last bus leaves here tonight at 6:15. Now, get off. We've nobody for the Guinness Storehouse. Not one single person wants to go drinking Guinness. Whether with God had just no shame. That's incredible. No one wants to go drinking Guinness. Although, folks, I always say that the best way to leave a Guinness Storehouse is what you do, guys, is that when you drive down this road, instead of driving the bus like this, okay? And then you get more people going, oh sweet mother with Jesus, Michael, he's been in there all day. Now, right, it's Sunday morning. I'm going to try to do this quickly, right? If you've got a camera with you or a mobile phone, again, turn it on, guys. Try to get some photographs. I'll stop talking again in a second. But turn your camera on. I'm going to show you the famous Guinness black gates where all the TV commercials are made. So there, on your left-hand side now, folks, there's the famous Guinness black gates here. On your left-hand side. That is where all the TV commercials get made against the black gates. You can see what they just done one actually. They just cleaned the whole place up. The lamppost still painted white. But that is where everything gets filmed on your left hand side, folks. So if you want to get a photograph as quick as you can, press the button. There now with the seats upstairs now. Wonder if God just pressed the button.
On James Street. Coming up on our right hand side, you can see the steeple of St. James Church. This church, completed in 1860, is now home to the Pierce Lyons Whiskey Distillery. The cost of converting this church into a distillery was in excess of €20 million and was funded by Pierce Lyon, an Irish-born entrepreneur who founded the Alltech Nutrition Company. In 1948, the church steeple had to be removed due to structural damage and was only replaced as part of the conversion. The steeple lights up at night. It has become an iconic emblem of this area and is known as the Liberty Lantern. This area is called Kilmainham after a 7th century monastery called Kilwine, which in the Irish language means the Church of Wine. A monastery survived here until the coming of the Vikings in the 9th century. As we turn right and proceed up the hill, the entrance to the Royal Hospital will be coming up on the left. Inspired by Les Invalides in Paris, it was built in 1684 by James Butler, the Duke of Ormond, as a retirement home for old, infirm and retired British soldiers. Today, the Royal Hospital is home to the Irish Museum of Modern Art. The museum is open to the public and is free admission. This stop is for the Royal Hospital. Please remember to take your headphones and personal belongings with you.
Now folks, you're also using this stop here for Kilmainham Jail. If you want to get access to the jail, folks, you can walk through the gardens of the Royal Hospital and it brings you right out beside Kilmainham Jail.
On the left is Euston Station. It was built in the 1840s and designed by Sancton Wood during what has been described as the golden age of Irish railway development. It was the showpiece of the great Southern and Western railways which had just amalgamated. Trains to the south and west operate from here today. Originally called Kingsbridge, it was renamed Euston Station in 1966 to commemorate Sean Houston, another executed leader of the 1960 Rising. This stop is for Euston Station. Please take your headphones and personal belongings with you. As we cross the river, you will notice the bridge on your left with the date 1821 inscribed on it. This was actually built in 1828 and commemorates the visit of George IV to Dublin in 1821. We are now entering the largest enclosed city park in Europe. This is called Felix Park and covers 1,752 acres. Parkgate Street has some very fine pubs, including Nancy Hand's, which was restored some years ago. Among the interesting architectural salvage installed here is a staircase which once belonged to Trinity College. William Ryan's, number 28 on the left, has a beautiful Victorian interior, and has 4 box-type snugs which connect with the counter, and each has a latch which is operated by a barman. A snug was a little room in a pub where women traditionally drank. This stop is for Parkgate Street. Please take your headphones and personal belongings with you. Our next stop is for the Museum of Decorative Arts and History, known locally as the Collins Barracks Museum. On our left is the Croppies Acre Park, and in this park you will see the figure of Anna Livia reclining in a pond. This was Dublin's most famous Millennium Monument in 1988, when Dublin celebrated its 1000th birthday. Originally located in OConnell Street, where the spire stands today, she is known as the Floozy in the Jacuzzi. The Collins Barracks Museum is coming up on our left. Built in 1701 by the British Army as the Royal Barracks, it was renamed Collins Barracks after Michael Collins, the first Commander-in-Chief of the Irish Army. Today, Collins Barracks is home to the National Museum for Decorative Arts and History. It also contains an exhibition of the 1916 Easter Rebellion and Ireland's military history called Soldiers and Chiefs. This museum has the Sean O'Casey Bridge was opened, allowing pedestrians easy access to the International Financial Services Centre. In 2009, a retractable road bridge also serving the IFSC and Docklands area was made the Samuel Beckett Bridge. Our next stop is for the Jameson Distillery, St. Vincent's Church on the Smithfield Chimney. The Jameson Whiskey Distillery was founded on Bow Street by John Jameson in 1780, and from this distillery the name of Jameson's Irish Whiskey became famous around the world. While inside, you can try a premium whiskey tasting experience. Learn how to blend your own take on whiskey, and also experience the craft of whiskey cocktail making. The Visitor Centre has a museum area, guided tours and Irish whiskey tasting. St. Michan's Church houses the oldest working church organ in the country, believed to have been used by George. Standing 53 metres high, it is crowned by a 2-tiered glass observation platform. From here, you can enjoy panoramic views of Dublin City. This stop is for the Jameson Distillery, St. Michan's Church, and Smithfield Chimney. This date back to 1198, when it was a Viking inn. Both pubs provide food and drink. Forecourts of Dublin, so called because when it opened for business in 1802, it contained 4 courts of law in the central block. It was designed by James Gandon, and nowadays the Irish High Courts and Supreme Courts are located here. It is generally accepted that the Irish Civil War began at the fort. The modern office buildings on the right are civic offices belonging to Dublin City Council. They stand on a site called Wood Quay, named after the wooden fence which the Vikings built along the river. This was part of the ancient Viking town, and archaeologists working here in the 1970s discovered what was the largest Viking site outside Scandinavia right here in Dublin. Thousands of artifacts were excavated from the site, and despite protests, the area was built over. Most of the artifacts discovered here are displayed in the National Museum on Kildare Street.
Right guys, now very quickly, your next stop, that's going to be for OConnell Bridge. Now guys, quick tip for you here, anybody that wants to get back over to the likes of Grafton Street or Trinity College guys, and you want to get there in a hurry, our next stop, OConnell Bridge, is your stop to use guys. All you got to do is when you get off this bus, you go over OConnell Bridge and go straight, 5 minutes, that's all. Then you're right there at Trinity College and Grafton you guys. It would be the quickest way to get to those areas. We will bring you back over on a bus guys, but look, it's just in case you're in a hurry. We just left the bus guys. What is it? From stop number 1 to stop 16, Trinity College, it's going to take roughly about an hour. Where you can just walk over in 5 minutes. So just bear that in mind. I don't want to see you stuck here guys. And then folks, if you want to go Temple Bar, the bridge here to your right hand side now guys, if you go over the bridge, you go under the archway, you're right to the heart of Temple Bar. The bridge is what you call the Wilde Bridge, built back in 1816. Now from 1816 to 1916 it was a halfpenny toll to go over the bridge. The toll was abolished in 1916 folks, but to this day we all simply call it the halfpenny bridge. So if you want to go to Temple Bar guys, over the bridge, under the archway, you're right side Temple Bar. So folks, here we go. This is OConnell Bridge. I said if you want to go to Trinity College or Grafton Street, use this stop here guys. So this is the Guinness Starter now for because it's almost pointing to the wood, forward equal 3 meters at the base and is tapered to 15 centimeters at the very top. It was what we call the Guinness Starter, the rod to God, or the stiletto in the ghetto, or hole in the hole. Now, it's actually called the microphone or that's not folks, but it's comes in over the microphone. The microphone will actually go blue. And the building out here to the left hand side now, this is the general post office. So this building here was the headquarters for the 1916 group. That is this building, that's where everything's on. This building here on the left hand side. And then you wish to go shopping in Dublin, that's there on my left hand side. Now that's Henry Street. There's 3 or 4 shops down there on Parnell Street guys. That's where you're going to get all your bargains. Right folks, so this is our last stop. I'm going to wish you all the best and take care. The next bus will not be leaving here until 12 o'clock.